They asked me to talk about space. I have a really cool pitch for you here today, but they didn't tell me I'd be following Professor Grennan. Kind of a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best here. Now, most of what he said makes me feel pretty good about what I'm about to tell you, and there's a couple things that we'll have to work on here. But I'm in sort of a privileged position here. I'm in a room full of people that have probably the coolest job at their individual companies, but I might have the coolest job in the room. I lead our space practice. This is an industry that I started in more than 25 years ago, and it's one that has just gone through just an amazing and exciting number of changes in that time frame. And really, as Heather mentioned, in the last 5 years, it's just gone exponential. So today I'm going to talk to you about an innovative platform that we built called Deloitte One, and I'm going to talk to you about the reliance that we all have on space from a data standpoint. And then I'll even go through a couple of use cases of how I, as a leader, am using Gen AI tools in my job related to space. So let's get into it. All right. What is space? Space is an economy. It is $1.8 trillion by 2035 is the projection. And typically when people think of space, they think of what they see. They think of rockets, they think of astronauts, they think of Katy Perry. Like, I had a lot in my job explaining what the whole Katy Perry thing was about. But it is way more than this. So that is just what you see. That's actually less than single digits of what that 1.8 trillion will represent by 2035. Most of it is around people, data, and infrastructure that affects our life and how we do business here on Earth. The example I love to give is the blue dot on your phone. That's the GPS constellation. It provides you your location. It tells you where to go, helps you navigate. It's also just critical for businesses, this data set. The Department of Commerce estimates that more than $1.4 trillion of economic activity has been generated since that was made public in the late 90s. So we use it every single day. It's so ubiquitous. I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. It's representative of a larger data set that by 2032 is projected to be over 200 petabytes a day. Those are the right numbers, by the way, the right P, not T, not G. It's petabytes a day by 2032. And you can just imagine, how do we make sense of all of this data that's going to be coming down? Now, one of the use cases that I have up here is around what we call Earth observation data. So Earth observation data is basically any way that we sense things about our Earth. We use it for things like climate, sustainability. Macro farms use it for thinking about like soil moisture level, checking that from space. Utilities, Lynn mentioned this earlier, like how do I make sure that vegetation's not infringing on power lines? If you're an insurance company, maybe you want to underwrite a policy related to floods, wildfire. All of that is underpinned by space data. This data set we calculated between 2023 and 2030 has the potential to add $3.8 trillion to global GDP. So just a wealth of data, 1,000 use cases for it, and ones that we're more and more reliant on over time. And that theme of reliance is what I want to talk about next. So I'm going to picture someone in this room, maybe they woke up and they flew here from Mountain View yesterday. So you woke up, you got the Uber, you went to the airport, you got on the plane, you connected to the Wi-Fi, hopefully okay. Wi-Fi is like plane Wi-Fi is the worst space use case sometimes. And you got off the plane, you got a cup of coffee or some lunch, and you came to DU, right? You likely interacted with 100 satellites on that journey. So you can kind of get a sense for even in your personal life how that is working. Now, Sora 2 helped me here. What if that didn't work? What would that look like for you? We rely so much on the data from space. What does it mean when it doesn't work? So to that effect, we have built a platform we call Deloitte One. And Deloitte One is a satellite. And the Deloitte One satellite is testing a capability called Silent Shield. What you're seeing here on the left is actually footage from a launch in March. SpaceX Transporter 13, this is our satellite, Deloitte One, actually deploying from that rideshare mission. Pretty incredible moment for us from a tech and an innovation standpoint as a firm. And what it's there to do is to test Silent Shield. Silent Shield is basically an AI/ML system that looks for, it sort of models normal behavior on a satellite and then looks for anomalous behavior as well. And so we do a lot of work here on the ground related to cyber engineering, and what we noticed was that many of these satellites, which are essentially just computers in space, have less protections on them than the phone that's in your pocket. I actually don't see a lot in the hands. I should say in your hand, but it's actually in the pocket or on the table today. Good job, audience. It is a little bit scary to think about, but this is a capability that we're not only deploying on the satellite itself, but also looking at use cases for bringing those alerts and that data back down to Earth so we can apply the AI ML to that and look for the sort of normal behavior and the anomalous behavior. Okay, now, when we were thinking about this little TED Talk, team said, we're like 10x use cases. That's the big thing in AI right now. And I listen to a lot of AI podcasts, and I know that's like what can I do in 1 hour now? That used to take me 10. And I have plenty of that as I've used the Gen AI tools, but I started thinking about like, what are these completely different use cases? So I'm gonna call them 1/0 use cases. These are undefined use cases. This is where, and I had to have ChatGPT help me with this, but this is where, quote, arithmetic breaks down. So what are the things that I'm able to do as a leader that are representative things that this industry is gonna be able to do that are completely undefined, where the arithmetic breaks down? Okay, a question I get all the time is, where is Deloitte One? Now that is not an easy question to answer, so Deloitte One is the size of about a briefcase, and it is currently hurtling around the Earth at 17,500 miles per hour and at an altitude of about 590 kilometers. I cannot do the math to figure out where it is at any given point, and matter of fact, Deloitte One has 2 jobs. So the first one was that silent shield thing that I mentioned, and then the second one is that we actually have a sensor, like the Earth observation sensors that I mentioned earlier, that collects radio frequency information about the Earth. And that could be a use case like, I want to know where a shipping vessel from China over to Long Beach port, where is it? It will send up a beacon, and satellites will pick up that beacon and know exactly where it is. Now, what I'm going to show you next is a way that I was able to use Gen AI to build a tool that could actually show me where Deloitte One is at any given time. I can find out when it was at a particular location last and when it's going to be there next, sort of an odometer function to it. And this is also important because we have clients that buy this data, and we want to be able to make sure that they understand how to do this. Now, unlike Professor Grant, I'm not going to do this live. I recorded it. I also was afraid to type all this in front of you. What you can see is essentially we have, I've taken a public URL. So you need what's called a NORAD ID, which is essentially just the unique identifier of the satellite. I said, grab the information off that site and generate an app that will show me where Deloitte One is and allows me to search for it. So this is the result as I've run the code. You can see it's doing some math as well too. I kind of have these like visions at this point in my career of like sitting in a room and I'm thinking to myself like, could I do this on my own? The answer is no, I couldn't do this on my own. What you're seeing here, it's the little red dot is Deloitte One. It will move over time. The green path is the next hour of its as it's transversing the Earth. And the little blue path is where it's been in the last hour. You can see I'm typing in Deloitte University, and I'm figuring out the last time it was here. The next time it'll be there, and that odometer function. This is about a week ago. Deloitte One's, believe it or not, traveled over 90 million miles. I also like that little stat because I use it in executive presentations when I say stuff like, Deloitte One, we're 90 million miles ahead of the competition, or something along those lines too, so it helps me in that too. I missed it by like 4 hours, by the way. It was directly overhead. The chances of that are really rare, but it was good. All right, so this next use case really will blow your mind. I get a second question, which is, what is this data like that Deloitte One is generating? I don't know how many radio frequency engineers there are in the room, probably 0. I'm not one of them, but it is a complex set of data that comes off the satellite that we need to be able to interpret. So I looked and said, what would it take to do this? Maybe a team of 8 to 10 people with supporting infrastructure, annual cost, maybe $3 or $4 million. So I said to the team, give me the file off the satellite. Straight off the satellite, all the metadata that comes with it. I'm going to drop it in the reasoning model and see what happens. So I'm going to give it a prompt. I'm essentially going to say, you're a PhD level analyst. I used ChatGPT to help me with this prompt. I didn't want you to have to watch me type this whole thing, but essentially do the analysis. These are the files I'm uploading, and I want to get visualizations. I want to be able to come up with reasonable conclusions about what this data set is and be able to explain it to a client. So you can see some pretty complex stuff happening here. I'm not sure how much people know about zoomed baseband around detected carriers or not, but it's going to show essentially what frequency the collection picked up, where on Earth it was, what it looked like. All of these visualizations are very relevant to a client sets that we have, and it will come up with a reasonable conclusion and an executive summary for what was collected. Again, picture that sort of dark lit room with me and a laptop. There is absolutely no way as a leader that I could be able to do these things, and these are just sort of routine right now. And it's come up with a very reasonable conclusion that this was an observation at 401 megahertz of a beacon from a satellite that we picked up over the Pacific Ocean. So I sort of give you these use cases not to say, this is like what we're all going to be doing, but just even for me and my job to say, what would it look like for this industry to take these tools and maybe apply them at the edge? So I no longer have that 200 petabytes of data coming down. I'm just getting the insights. What could I do as a leader or just an average person in being able to interpret complex data files like this? So that is the micro TED Talk I have for you. I want to just kind of whet the appetite. I will be around, very easily identifiable with this jacket on. I'll be around all day, and really would love to, the opportunity here to talk about this cool innovation that we're doing, literally launching ourselves in space, and then the infinite possibilities that AI has enabled me as a leader, and then us as an organization. So with that, I thank you.